What if I told you that one of our most basic beliefs, that the ground we stand on is solid and stable, is a lie? We're diving into a theory today that argues this idea of a slow, predictable Earth isn't just wrong, it's a comforting story we tell ourselves to hide a violent, cyclical truth. So, this theory, supposedly based on declassified research, paints a pretty radical picture. It says our planet isn't some gentle giant at all. Nope. It's a geological time bomb, and it's set to go off on a predictable schedule. It's called the cataclysm theory, and it describes nothing less than a total reset of civilization, a planetary scale purge that starts and finishes in less than 6 hours. All right, let's get into it, starting with the one piece of evidence that seems to defy all modern explanation. According to this theory, our first clue isn't buried in data, it's a forensic mystery. A perfectly preserved crime scene that's thousands of years old, which it claims modern science just can't explain. I'm talking about the Beresovka mammoth. Found in Siberia, this thing wasn't just frozen, it was flash frozen. I mean, they found undigested buttercups still in its mouth. It died almost instantly while it was eating. It was suffocated in mud, and its bones were just shattered by some incredible force. But think about it. How do you flash freeze a multi-ton animal so fast that its insides don't even have time to start decaying? Well, to get this kind of perfect preservation, the theory says the temperature would have had to plummet by as much as 180 degrees Fahrenheit, almost in the blink of an eye. That's a temperature drop so fast and so extreme, it's beyond any natural weather we know of. In fact, the source we're looking at claims that when this very problem was presented to the American Frozen Foods Institute, the experts in freezing stuff fast, they basically said it's impossible. They couldn't do it even with our best technology. So the theory argues some force totally unknown to our current science had to be involved. So with this impossible mystery just sitting there, let's look at the theory's explanation for how a world-ending event like this could actually happen. And it all starts deep, deep under our feet. The theory lays out four, let's call them terrifying steps to planetary failure. First, it says our solar system is moving through a kind of magnetic null zone in the galaxy, and this is causing Earth's magnetic field to decay. Second, that decay turns the molten layer 60 miles below us, which is normally thick and sludgy, into a super slick liquid lubricant. Third, the enormous off-center weight of the polar ice caps in Greenland and Antarctica starts to pull on this now loose crust. And then, number 4, the shell slips. The entire 60-mile thick skin of our planet gets dragged over the molten interior. And we're not talking about a slow drift. In just a matter of hours, somewhere between a quarter and half a day, the planet's entire shell shifts by up to 90 degrees. The North Pole gets dragged to where the equator used to be. But here's the real kicker. The solid crust moves, but the atmosphere and the oceans, they don't. Thanks to momentum, they keep spinning at their original speed, over 1,000 miles an hour. Can you imagine? The theory says this creates supersonic winds and tsunamis miles high that literally scour the continents clean. And that's how a mammoth could be eating buttercups one minute and be suffocated, crushed, and flash frozen the next. So, okay, if a disaster this huge has happened before, you'd think there would be evidence all over the place, right? Well, the theory says there is. It's a global crime scene with fingerprints hidden in our geology and our oldest stories. The theory points to things like Tiahuanaco, this ancient city high in the Andes Mountains. It has ruins that look exactly like seaports, but it's at 12,500 feet. How does that even happen? It also points at the thousands of flood myths from cultures all over the world that never had any contact with each other. And it even reinterprets the Grand Canyon, saying its layers weren't laid down slowly over eons, but all at once by a massive supersonic wall of water. And by looking at astronomical markers they found at Tiahuanaco, the source actually outlines what it calls a predictable cycle of destruction. It points to a huge event about 7,000 years ago, what it calls Noah's flood, and another one around 11,500 years ago. The theory is that each of these events hit the reset button on human civilization. So if this cycle is real and predictable, what are the warning signs we should be looking for now? According to the source, the most immediate and, frankly, terrifying sign isn't in the rocks or the ice. It's something much, much closer to home. This is maybe the most chilling part of the whole theory. It claims that the exact same force that's destabilizing the planet's crust is also destabilizing the human mind. The breakdown, it says, starts inside of us. Now, we know for a fact that the Earth's magnetic field is getting weaker. That's not speculation, we can measure it. It's dropped significantly just in the last few centuries. But this theory argues that this isn't just a geological warning sign, it's a biological one too. And this claim is anchored to a study at sites from Hahnemann Medical College. Scientists put mice in a simulated low magnetic field, and their bodies literally started to break down. But the changes to their behavior were even more shocking. Even with plenty of food, they turned to cannibalism. They engaged in constant forcible rape, things you just don't see in their normal environment. So you see the dark parallel the theory is drawing here. It predicts that as our planet's magnetic shield gets weaker, it triggers this deep, primal sense of impending doom that just corrupts our moral foundation. And those with the least empathy, it says, are the first to turn criminal. All right, let's tie this all together for the final warning. The theory basically argues that when you look at the geological, the historical, and the biological evidence, they're all pointing to the exact same ominous conclusion. And here's the theory's crucial final point. It reframes all those ancient myths, Noah's flood, all of them, not as allegories, but as fragmented survival manuals. It sees them as historical records, warning us that before the planet itself breaks apart, society breaks apart first. A global descent to lawlessness, it claims, is the final precursor. This whole theory leaves us with one final and deeply unsettling question. If there really is a direct link between human empathy and the physical stability of the planet, what does the state of our modern world tell you about the strength of the very ground beneath our feet?